How you doing, guys? Just wanted to do a quick video on the boxing this weekend, in particular the card Dillain Whyte versus Jermaine Franklin. That's the one that I'm going to be tuning into out of the UK cards. You've got Zach Parker, John Ryder over on BT, but to be honest, the Dillain Whyte Jermaine Franklin card's got 3 decent fights and a few prospects on the undercard. So I'll be focusing my attention on that, and I'll watch back the other card at a later date. I think John Ryder's probably going to get robbed on that other card. He's probably going to win the fight but get robbed. But anyway, moving on. Let's move on to this card. I've just got it up on BoxRec here because I wanted to see what the undercard fights were other than the 3 ones that I was really interested in. Nothing really to shout there. You got Chev Clark back, you know, in a nothing fight really. You got Pat McCormack, which I believe is his Matchroom debut, which might be a big name for them going forward. Thomas Carter, he's something to do with Dillain Whyte, I think he manages him or something. George Lillard, and you've got Mark Dickinson as well, which, has he already had a fight with Matchroom? I don't know. It's possibly his first fight with Matchroom as well. I'm not sure off the top of my head. Then you move on to the main card. Looking at it, the first fight on the main card is Sandy Ryan, and she's fighting a girl which has been in with a few other girls from, I'll say over here, and including Katie Taylor. She fought, I believe. Obviously, Katie's Irish, but she fights over here quite a lot. Yeah, I don't know too much about this girl other than she got pretty much whitewashed when she fought anyone over here who was decent. So Sandy Ryan's a good little fighter. Expect her to probably get the job done. Sorry about that, guys. Just had a phone call come in. Yeah, Sandy Ryan, I don't know too much about the fight. You know, I would like to say that she'll probably get the job done. It looks like it's for some WBC International Scooby-Doo belt. So she'll probably get the job done, get herself a ranking in the WBC. Unless, of course, she's already WBC Scooby-Doo champion, or whatever they call him. Right, moving on to the main fights, the ones I'm interested in. First up, I believe, would be the Craig Richards Ricard Bolotnick's fight, which is a tasty little fight. Anyone that don't know Bolotnick's and has a look at his record would maybe think this was a bit of a touch for Craig Richards, but it's not at all. Bolotnick's, he won, I believe, the Golden Tournament, or whether it was the NTK done back in the day before the cartel got shut down. He won the tournament, and he beat a couple of English guys, including Jose Burton, who Jose Burton back in the day, to be honest, in my opinion, at one point he was the best out of the bunch at light heavyweight. But yeah, Bolotnick's beat him, and he beat the guy in the final. Was it Serge Michel or someone like that? I believe, off the top of my head, who looked proper mustard in it, and Bolotnick's beat him. He's a good little fighter in his day, and to be honest, I expect him to give Richards a hard fight. He was giving Buatsi a hard fight until Buatsi started giving him a harder fight back and got the stoppage. But Buatsi had to fight a bit dirty in that, you know. He really had to work his way to get that stoppage. And at the end of the day, I'm backing Craig Richards to win the fight, so I think he's probably in and around a similar level to Buatsi on his day, as you see when they fought. But I wouldn't be surprised if that was a good little fight, you know. Craig went through a decent patch just before he sort of went over and had his shot against Bivol and stuff like that, where he went through the English domestic scene and he cleared up pretty much, and he was knocking guys out. He is levels above British level, and he's gave a good account of himself at world level, and this is probably, well, it is below world level, so I expect him to get the job done. I don't think he will get the stoppage against Bolotniks. I would back him to win a points decision over the 12 rounds. Next fight I want to talk about is the British heavyweight title fight on the undercard, which is a very good fight. I don't know if it will play out to be a very good fight, but it's a good fight on paper. You've got Nathan Gorman, who's looked decent at times, but also shown his vulnerabilities, and he's been stopped before by the likes of Daniel Dubois. Dubois, obviously a massive puncher, so that might have had something to do with the stoppage. But that being said, he's also outworked people and outboxed people. He's got a good boxing brain, being from the background he's from. He's outworked people and got the win over the distance against not really names you would scream about. But then again, Fabio Wardley, who he's fighting, he's not really got the names anyway. He's probably got bigger names on his record that jump out at you, judging by previous opponents of theirs. One springs to mind, Eric Molina, and you got Nick Webb, who's come for a shootout. The worrying thing about Fabio Wardley, what I've seen, is in the Eric Molina fight, he was lit up a couple of times by a guy that's been known to be able to punch in the past, to be honest, but really is well past his best. And almost the fight ended bizarrely. It's almost like a quit from Molina, and I wasn't sure about his power, but I've said that a couple of times about fights, so I wasn't sure about Wardley's power, but he carries on knocking these people out. So I think this is going to be a step up for him. I think it's going to be a decent fight whilst it lasts, but I'm not going to back against Wardley again like I have done in the past, because he's shown me this power is legit to some extent in a few of fights that I doubted him in. I think he comes unstuck when he comes against someone that can really punch though, because he was taking punches too cleanly at a lower level when he fought the likes of Eric Molina. I'm going to back Wardley to stop Nathan Gorman mid-rounds. I would say between round 6 and 8. I think Gorman will have a good start, be outboxing Wardley, but gas a bit by mid-fight and ultimately get stopped. But we'll see. It could turn out to be a stinker of a fight, and you have to sit there and watch Fabio Wardley get his ears boxed off for 12 rounds, like Gorman tends to do sometimes. But I would back Wardley for the stoppage. You know what they say, never back a puncher over a boxer, but that's exactly what I'm going to do. Anyway, moving on to the main event. This one's a bit of a tricky one because Dillain Whyte, it's good to see him back. I do like a Dillain Whyte fight. I want to say he brings the heat in all his fights when he comes, but I've seen a few fights which he hasn't done that. This guy is fighting Jermaine Franklin. I'm not going to pretend like I know anything about him, so I don't. I've heard his name in the past over the years as the unbeaten American that might come over here to fight one of our fighters one day. But he's very much the unbeaten American, which is not a prospect, I think. He's just a guy that's built up a padded record. I'm not going to say as bad as Christopher Lovejoy, because he looks like he's a lot better of a fighter than Lovejoy. And from what footage I've seen of him just looking in the build-up to this fight, it looks like he's got fast hands. And the rumours on the street is he's got a decent chin. Now, I can't see how those rumours can be confirmed until you step up in a fight with the smaller gloves on rather than behind doors sparring people. I think Dubois mentioned he had a good chin or something, but this is inspiring. Now, in his professional career, he's something like 21-0, I believe, off the top of my head. What is he? Yeah, he's 21-0, and he's got a decent knockout percentage, but it's against absolute nobodies. The only real couple of fights or names on his record that are worth mentioning, the standout is Jerry Forrest, and he actually beat Jerry Forrest before Jerry Forrest started losing to quite a few people. So that's potentially a standout fight, what I can say. Which, looking at the fight, it was a close fight, you know. But then Jerry Forrest has had close fights and draws with some other decent people as well of late, so I can't knock him too much for that. From what I've seen of his fighting style, he looks like he's got almost no defence whatsoever when he's throwing his own punches. Looks like he likes to clinch a bit. I think that's dangerous against someone like Dillain Whyte. I think Dillain Whyte's short left hook is one of the best punches in heavyweight boxing. I think until someone gets hit with a hook like that, they don't know if they can take it. As we've seen with Dillain Whyte's opponents in the past, albeit there was a head clash, Dillain Whyte's best win, I would say, of his career is obviously levels above anything that Jermaine Franklin has beaten in his career, and that's Joseph Parker. Joe Parker, albeit there's a clash of heads which knocked him down earlier on in the fight, Dillain Whyte did catch him with that left hand later on in the fight, and it is effective. I expect Jermaine Franklin to be well out of his depth in multiple aspects, including fighting away from home in front of such a hostile crowd, which I expected to be in there. And I expect the big lights to be on him and Dillain Whyte to be on his A game, really. He maybe deserves this comeback fight, coming off of a bad loss against Tyson Fury, but I would back Dillain Whyte to make a pretty convincing beating and mid to late round stoppage of Jermaine Franklin. I see the left hand coming into it, I see it coming off of a clinch or an attempted clinch, coming in for a clinch onto a left hand, or he's going to hit him when he's throwing, or one of those catch and counters that he does. Franklin, unless he's got a granite chin, which we will find out, Dillain Whyte, we know, can punch with both hands, and I think Franklin's not had no in-between fight to set him up to fight at this level, and I think he's in for a tough night. Yeah, but my prediction, mid to late stoppage, Dillain Whyte. I think it'll be a good night of boxing, a couple of stoppages on the undercard, and you might have to watch a few, Mexican cab drivers get knocked out by some of the other guys at the bottom, and then, 10 2-minute rounds with a points decision in the girls' fights, and then hopefully catch the result. A Frank Warren show, the main event probably won't be on until at 1 o'clock in the morning, so hopefully Dillain Whyte gets this guy out of there quickly and we can flick over to BT Sport and watch the Parker fight against John Ryder, and then do an all-nighter, stay up and watch probably the fight of the weekend, which is Regis Prograis versus Zepeda. What a brilliant fight. That's going to be a shootout as well, I reckon. But we'll do a video on that another time, maybe. Got to go, guys. Enjoy the boxing this weekend as always. Speak to you soon.